was, part of the course description. So why do visuals matter in nonprofit work? There are multiple reasons for that. I like to know from the audience if I mean there's a lot of points mentioned already on the slide, but nonetheless, anyone wants to have a go? Does anyone want to answer this question? Why do visuals matter in nonprofit work? Would love to share and know your opinions and thoughts, or perhaps even why you got motivated to join this course, because you thought that this question was important to answer. So, anyone?
So pictures have more of an impact than reading words. It's a faster way as well.
Okay, thank you, Hemaji. Yes. Yes, pictures are very powerful. They are like very influential. They convey a lot more than some text. They convey emotions, they convey aesthetic beauty, they convey a lot of other things as well that lies in the spectrum of emotions. So visuals also shaped how our mission as a nonprofit is understood, like what we are doing. Say let's say we're working with agriculture, or we're working with women, and then the pictures that we use to show how we are engaging with that mission, uh, it's very vital to know how visuals work in that sense. Like, because like visuals don't have is not limited by is language, as in say I'm speaking English now, so somebody who's not speaking English may struggle to find what I'm saying, make sense of what I'm saying, but they can see my face, they can see that I'm talking, they can see emotions, like I'm smiling, so they know that I'm happy. If I'm showing a bit of distress in my face, they can read that, right? So visuals are important that way. They also influence support, trust, and community engagement. What I mean by this is that, when, let's say, nonprofits engage a lot with donors and supporters and well-wishers. So when we tell our donors that, okay, we are going to use the money that you have, endowed us with, and we're going to benefit, make people benefit of it. Like, how do you show proof of that, right? Like, how do you build that, trustworthiness and credibility by using images? A lot of nonprofits do that. Like, they have these brochures and communication materials, and also obviously social media, where they showcase the work that they are doing. So I mean, it's very common practice in nonprofit that, if you're helping some people, you always take pictures to show that, like, you're helping others. I mean, I'm not saying that they should be encouraged, and I'm gonna go into the nitty-gritties of that. But usually what happens is, like, forget about nonprofits, but let's say community workers, or like social workers, or people who are just there working for the community. I mean, photographs are a must of nonprofit and community. How is it done? Like, how is an image building an image? How does it convey care and justice? How does it not convey it? We'll go more into that. And I'm sorry, please stop me when things get too theoretical also, if we need to skip those parts. But I assure you that it'll be interesting to know all these theories also. So how beneficiaries are, some people have an issue with the word beneficiary. Let's just say that stakeholders slash beneficiaries, how are they visually represented? Like, you're working with children, for example. We work with children, so how we represent that work, we have obviously can't hide children, because we are working with children. We have to show that we are working with children, right? That builds that kind of public credibility, and we engage with both the stakeholders, but also the donors and all our supporters in that manner. So how they are represented shapes how the public's donors and even other NGOs and the NGO, the team member themselves, perceive and understand poverty, justice, and empowerment. So how does that happen? I'm just gonna go ahead. So this is a quote by John Berger, who had this very famous series, I think back in the 70s. It was called The Ways of Seeing, and he kind of like walks us through various paintings and from the Renaissance era, and how those paintings convey a sense of power, and how things work in that sense. So what he says is that images are never neutral. The pictures are not just there because they're pretty and they look good and they are aesthetically pleasing. Pictures convey a lot of, um, for lack of a better word, pictures are very political. Okay, so I'm just going to skip ahead. So before we go deeper into how things are, I'm sure the audience here, some of us may be more oriented towards, like humanities and arts, and some people may have studied in college, or some people may be completely new to these concepts. So I'll just attempt and help define some of the terms that I'll be using going ahead. So power, what is power? When I say, well, like, power can mean 10 different things, but power is obviously, when I talk about power, I mean the power that is permeating human society, like how power functions, not just political power, but let's say even within a family also, there are power hierarchies, there are setups. In an organization, there is power, and there is definitely power between an NGO, a non-profit, and its stakeholders. So power is something that is transactional. Power is not bad. Power is bad when it is exploited, when it is misused, but power is a form of currency. Just like money is not bad. Money, if it is exploited, if we overindulge, then it's bad. But otherwise, money is not a bad thing. Money is just a very neutral thing. So power is also like that. The power is, what Foucault is one of these thinkers that a lot of people who are studying sociology and cultural studies may be aware of. But I just thought that it's important to mention his name. We're not going deep into what he said or what are his theories, but uh, just something that I wanted to mention, if in case you guys want to read about him later. So power is not only top down or repressive, it's everywhere. Power is embedded everywhere. It permeates everything, every relation. It's there in our knowledge system. It's in the language that we speak, in everyday practices. And of course, power is embedded in visuals and images also. So power produces truth. And how does that happen? Let's say, for example, um, I sh I show you a picture of me climbing a mountain, um, and I show it to you, and then I'm gonna say that, hey, I climbed the mountain, and this is a picture of me climbing the mountain. And what is automatically understood is that people are supposed to believe that you climbed the mountain. So that's how you start associating things with truth. So and then uh like I don't know, I'm just wary of going too deep into the topics. So please let me know if you want me to talk more about power and how it produces knowledge, and how it controls people. But just wanted to mention a little bit about this. And representation is also very important here. Representation is about reflecting on it's not just about how things are represented in images and all. It's the process of producing meaning. So, how does that happen? For example, if we look at media, if we look at the press, if we look at even individual creators, what are they crafting? They are crafting ways of representing, ways they are constructing stories using the images and the tools that they have. So what does this mean? It means, like, for example, if I want to show Northeast India, if people who are not from Northeast India would like to understand what Northeast India is about. And obviously, I'm going to show, because that person cannot come to physically to Northeast India, I'm going to show pictures and videos and visuals. So then the power comes in my hands, how I craft, how I make people see Northeast. I can make people think that Northeast is a very beautiful place with a lot of nice people, and like this lush green fields and mountains, and pristine lakes and rivers. I can also make people think that it's a very kind of like uh, I mean, there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of sad things happening. The choice is ultimately mine, and whoever if I am crafting the visuals, the power ultimately comes to me. So how I represent Northeast comes in my hand, and what is that? That's power in my hands to communicate this thing. Othering is also something that can come up, is that like when you are representing a group of people. Let's say we are representing a community from central India, the Central Indian tribal belt. And how do we portray them? How do we, like, show them? Do we? That also could go either ways. It can go in a very positive way, or it can go in a neutral way, or it can go in a bad way. So if we are showing people from different parts of the country, or the world, or different categories. Let's say even within the same city, people from a very like uh, 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 underserved neighborhood is being shown, and how you kind of like show them could define could result into something called othering. Is that you're showing them as different from everyday people. You're showing them as different from um yeah, I mean, that's when the words like normal, abnormal come up, which is very problematic. And if we even bring this topic to persons with disabilities, like how you say things, how we are conditioned to say things. Like you're saying, if you're talking to somebody with disability and you're saying that that person is normal, and we talk about the people who are not normal, like these things come up, then those already you are othering that person. You're already saying that, hey, you are different from me, and I belong to a group which is kind of like the norm, which is like the standard, and you're somewhat less, and you're not part of the group, but still, yeah, yeah. So that's what I mean by othering, which also could come up. Otherwise, it's also important for you to understand going forward. So I'm going to stop here for any questions, any comments, any opinions as of now. Okay. I hope people are listening though. I'm sorry, it's a bit theoretical at this point. We'll dwell on this for some time, and then we'll quickly we'll go to the technical aspects also. But I guarantee that the concepts that you're learning now, that I'm just, even if you already know these things, I'm introducing these things because it will be important going forward. Okay, so recognizing visual stereotypes. Obviously, we have, I mean, some people who works with visuals and all, you might have heard the word, excuse my French, poverty porn, which is like, um, it has nothing to do with explicit materials. It's just how the development sector, or like the nonprofits in America, also in other parts of the world, in India as well, they use these images which produce extreme levels of sympathy, and extreme levels of I don't know. You want to evoke a emotional reaction that is extreme, and you use other people's lives, which is not a reflection of what they really are, and you use it to um yeah, you use it for a certain end. So what it ends up doing is that it produces meanings, and it gives a people a perception that, hey, people from slums are always like this. Basically put them in a category which is not favorable for those who are being represented. Does anyone know any example, or want to share something about this? Okay. Now, what about these images? Of course, these are AI generated, but uh, you just see how they are represented with dignity, even if you show that, hey, they are from an underserved neighborhood or a place. You see how the subject seems to be in control, or seems to that they are the center of the conversation, right? So what I basically want to drive home is that the meaning of an image can change on how you represent, how the context, and how you kind of place that image in a web of meanings, right? um Now a few other terms that I want to go through is framing. So framing is basically a it's a term from media where, the media is notorious for deciding who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. So what the framing does is that, you um you crop certain parts of an image, and you end up showing the reality, but you show only a part of the reality. So you don't know the full story. So let's say, there was a bird, and the bird had three eggs. One of the eggs was stolen, and a cuckoo bird. I think people know about the cuckoo bird. Cuckoo bird came and laid their egg, and then she went away, and that cuckoo hatched into a cuckoo chick, and a cuckoo chick grew up to be a bird. But if I show this story with only the perspective of the cuckoo bird, without showing all the parts where the egg was pushed out, and the egg of the host bird was destroyed and everything. If I just show that there's a very sweet cuckoo chick who grew up, was nurtured, is very healthy. If I show only that aspect, then you think that the cuckoo bird is the hero of the story. But then you show it from a different perspective. You show it from the perspective of the host bird, for example. Then you see that, the cuckoo bird is actually more like a somebody who's a thief, basically, who's broken into somebody's house. And yeah, I think you get what I mean, or what I mean to say, that is, when you choose to leave certain parts of an image, um that itself is a decision that you're taking. You're exercising your power to shape how people perceive it. Um that's what framing is about. So another topic that I want to touch upon is participatory design. It's just like, when you're designing things, you want people who will be representative to be part of the conversation. Like, for example, you're taking a picture of an event in an Anganwadi, for example, and you want the children to be involved in the taking of the image. You don't want to be like, like a fly on the wall. You don't want to be taking the photos in secret. You want to inform that, hey, I'm taking a picture for everyone. Let's appear jolly. Let's look good. And then you can even show pictures, and then they get to be part of that process. So that's what participatory design is about. And agency is another word that's very important. Is that when you are um, like creating visuals, you want to give agency to the beneficiaries, to have them help make choices and act on their own will. You don't want to force the camera in somebody's face, or you don't want to take a picture that was taken with consent, of course, but then you twist the story, you put it in a certain different context, which the person who's in the picture may not agree with. So these are things that, when agency of the person is being ignored. But when beneficiaries are given agency, they see themselves as active participants, right? So these are some key tips and concepts that need to be kept in mind. It's a bit theoretical until this point, but any questions so far? Any comments? I hope people are still with me. Can you guys please give a thumbs up if you're still here? Like, how is the session so far? If you're liking it, can you please give a thumbs up? Okay. All right. So I'm just gonna like, this is a academic paper, of course, that, the name of the author I missed out here. Sorry, but the name of the paper is Reading NGOs Visually, Implications of Visual Images for NGO Management. And so what the paper says is that the visuals that NGOs use are not neutral. They actively shape the organization's identity and how the donors perceive that organization and how public engage with that organization. And images often present a mixed narrative. That is that, you present uh, images of suffering, of loss, of inadequate systems, but at the same time you present stories which or stories of impact, stories of people coming through and making it through all the suffering and adversities. But what happens sometimes is when you're trying to strike a balance between these two, you struggle to align with being consistent with the advocacy goals, which is like you are advocating, you're solving for children's education, but at the same time you are also advocating for right to education, let's say. And the right to education, what this says, if that aspect comes in conflict with, let's say, the images you are putting out of children who are illiterate, who are underserved, who are desperately in need of help, you might end up doing something that's counterproductive. That's what uh, the author is saying. And visuals used for fundraising can clash with internal values and create tension with ethical communication and donor appeal. This is, yeah, like I said, the alignment can clash. Internal values of the organization, the mission and objectives can clash with uh, how donors perceive, because like donors also need that emotional pull, because if you don't convince donors that there's some kind of emotions involved, that there's these that donors donors don't donate out of emotions. Like most of these CSRs and all are partnerships forged based on, like what are the deliverables and all. But let's take the case of like retail donors, or let's say high net worth people who want to donate to a cause, and more often than not they're donating because their emotions are invested into it. uh, and how do you kind of get that? How do you do? And it's the case in crowdfunding also. So when you're doing crowdfunding, you are appealing to the public emotionally. So how much of that is justified? And if yeah, NGOs, Southern partners, this point can be ignored because it's like in the context of the US. NGOs must critically examine their visual strategies to maintain internal coherence and avoid undermining long-term goals, right? So, sorry. So just a rule that I want to summarize with the all the theoretical things that have been going on so far. You must be overwhelmed. So the first rule is that image making is never neutral. Whatever images that you put out, you might think that these are just images for the sake of images, but they are not. They are not neutral. They have what I call genealogies, and uh, hierarchies to these meanings already associated with them. Every image carries values and assumptions, and images represent not just people but power as well. And so what we have to do is we have to conscious of framing and what's left out. Sympathy is not necessarily bad. Like a lot of these, like opinions that you hear out there is that, this is not good, this is not good, this is not good. But then people often don't give you a solution. Okay, then what is good? How am I supposed to convey that, the beneficiaries that I'm working with really need help, if I'm not supposed to show them on camera, if I'm not supposed to upload pictures of them? Then how can I do my work? How can I communicate to the donors? How can I communicate with the larger public? How can I donate? How can I communicate with our team members, our volunteers, the work we are doing? So it has to be ethical. So the key is to have to prioritize dignity and not and this does not mean that you have to live in denial of the suffering that people are facing. People are suffering, that those whoever we are helping, they are suffering, but it's in how we represent it, not what we represent, that the conversation should be about. So the ability to choose how someone is shown as needy, resilient, passive, that's a form of power. And that power lies in us. The person working in social media, the person who's taking pictures, the person who's editing videos for the organization, they have a huge power. And also the people who are making executive decisions, of course. So what we should come to is ethical representation in nonprofit works. We have to avoid stereotypes, but this doesn't mean that we want to erase the reality also. For example, just going back to the example of Northeast India that I was saying, that you want to show Northeast as a very uh, you want to show it as a mixed kind of place, that it's got very underdeveloped areas, it's got areas where there is like complete absence of law and order, but also you want to show places where there is a semblance of peace and semblance of progress and all of that. Um, but you don't want to fake it. You don't want to say that, this is a land full of happiness and there's nothing wrong about people here. There's everything is lush and green and it's just all flowers and good food. I'm sorry, but that's also true. But at the same time, the opposite can also be true, and both can coexist at the same time. And you don't want to hide that. You don't want to hide that. You don't want to show an image, a fictional place which doesn't even exist, and say that, okay, that represents our reality, because you're going to deny a lot of people the help that they need. You're going to deny a lot of people uh, the right kind of representation that they deserve. It's okay to show pain and injustice, but then it's not okay when you reduce people only to those things, right? Obviously, when it's good practice to get informed consent and contextual understanding of wherever you're working with, whoever you're working with, show communities as an agent of change, but you don't need to show them as, you know, which a lot of corporates do, is like they show people as too good. They never show uh, the mixed reality that exists. So you don't want that as a nonprofit. You want to show that there are problems, because how else would you show problems, solve the problems, and how else would you be able to communicate that to the larger public and to people who would more likely support you? So agency also includes resistance, mistakes, and complexity. That's what it's about. Okay. Going to the next slide. Sorry. So coming to my second rule, this is rules that I made up. Okay, there's no rule as such, but just for the sake of comprehension, I have came up with rule number 2, which is that you want to do ethical visual storytelling. So you want to tell stories with clarity and emotion. You want to use emotion, but you also want to be clear about what is desired of those stories, because ultimately it's an exercise of power. When I say visuals are powerful, or when we say that, we often, a lot of people say storytelling is very powerful.
Hai, aku light change kau ni, yo.
What does it mean that, there's power, and what does power mean here in this context, right? So use sympathy responsibly, use empathy. Some people would like to phrase it that way, that you don't want to be sympathetic, you want to be empathetic. So whatever works for you, but the meaning is the same, that you want to use emotions, but you don't want to be you don't want to deny people their reality. You don't want to. This is term called pink washing, that a lot of scholars use in regards to activism for queer and LGBTQ people, which is like, these are marketing campaigns where just you are not really changing anything. You are just like changing the color of your brand, for example, and you're just changing the color of your products, but nothing much changes in society. So yeah, that's something called tokenism, which is also important, right? That's also something you want to avoid. So represent complexity, represent the good sides, of course, but also represent the bad sides, the mixed reality, right? Let design amplify your values and relationship with the community, right? Um, okay, before I get to this, any questions, any comments, any thoughts so far? Anybody would like to share some thoughts, experiences? I hope the session is engaging till now. If you have any comments, please drop them in the comments also. If okay. I just hope I'm not getting too theoretical or going off on a tangent of my own. Let's just stepping into some practical stuff. So photography is also, of course, very important part of visuals, right? So it starts from there. Photographies are is a place where images are generated, and we take them and we use it in social media and all. So they are just to drive the point across about being ethical, having all these power and all these stuff that exists in images. Let's look at photography. So these are ethical photography guidelines issued by Global Development and Humanitarian Work for Global Human Development and Humanitarian Work. Some of the points that I extracted that um, uh, s- says that images must uphold dignity, safety, and consent of those photographed. Avoid visuals that exploit suffering or strip people of context and agency. Points that I've already mentioned before in the earlier parts of the session. Ensure that you have informed consent, including awareness of where and how the image will be used. So you're taking pictures, right? But then you also want to inform, at least if you can't inform all the people in you're working with, you just inform one community representative that, hey, I'm going to take pictures. I'm coming here for some nonprofit work. I'm going to take pictures. I'm going to use them for this purpose. Is that okay? And they might say no. They will say yes most of the time, but they might say no, and that's totally okay. They might have a perfect reason for it, and we don't want to violate that, right? If they're saying no, then we can't force them to agree to say yes, right? But also when you're even if you have the permission to take photographs. The photographs that you're taking should uphold dignity. And how will that happen? I'm gonna show examples. Um, but we're clear about consent, right? Informed consent. It's not just saying, "Hey, I'm gonna take a picture," but also you want to tell them elaborately, if possible, that you're gonna use this for this and that, that you're coming from this organization and this and that. Uh, and of course yeah, be accurate in terms of the context that you're giving. You don't, obviously, with regards to context, I want to give examples of stock photos. Like, a lot of people may still be using stock photos. Of course, now artificial AI generated images are also there, but when you're using these images, yeah, for example, I'm using AI images for the workshop, which is totally fine. It's just for illustrating and demonstrating that things are like this. But let's say, for example, I'm using that to raise funds, or I'm gonna use that to prove that some people are, there's some issue in the system, and um this is what's going on. That's not ethical. But also, if I use other nonprofit photography, say, done by other nonprofits, and completely take that out of context and use it for my own nonprofit work, that's also not ethical. Let's say, for example, there's a disaster happening in your locality and you want to raise funds for that. You take pictures taken by some NGO in another part of the country, and you take that, you crop that out, and you put it in your visuals, and then you say that, there's some disaster happening here. Can you please donate some money about this? Like, that's completely not ethical. So that is an example of how you take away context. Like, it can be a non-profit, it can be any other thing also. It can be, like, for example, misinformation, and that dwells into those territories of fake news and misinformation. But also, it's quite applicable here as well. So you don't want to use images from other parts of the world, other instances, and then use it for your own advocacy, and use it for things that doesn't really align with your cause, and doesn't really align with the context and the situation that you're working in. Um, so these are some examples of how power can be exercised in camera angles. So sorry, this would be a high angle. The first one is a high angle. Sorry. This is a high angle photograph, also called top shot, or, like, it seems as if the camera is looking down on the subjects, right? So this I'm just gonna, just give me a hold on a second. I'm just gonna edit this. Just gonna put this here and do this here. Okay, I think that makes sense now. Right. So as I was saying, a low angle shot like this portrays whoever is in it as a hero, as a savior, as somebody who's good and who's powerful, and who's watching over us. That's kind of like the angle that you use for people to portray this. And of course, this is a very infamous photograph of Donald Trump after as he was target for assassination. But the point I'm trying to make is that, you want to show. Some people said that this photo was staged because it shows Trump as a hero, and it was right before the elections also. But the point I'm trying to drive home is that, when somebody is shown from a lower angle, then you see that person as a savior. And this could be this is Donald Trump, but it could also be anybody for that matter. It could be a non-profit worker.
मम्मी आइनको फोन गरेर आगुला भन्नु त म मिटिङमा छु भनेर
I think Jasina,
कल गर्नु छ भिडियो कल
you're unmuted. Okay. Sorry about that. So high angle is when the camera looks down on the subjects. The subjects appear small and weak and passive and needy. So say, for example, very common in images of children. So you don't want to do that. What you actually want to do is you want to go down to the eye level. Right. This is a picture from TSF taken in one of the visits, and I thought this was good. So this is good to show what eye level shots are. So what eye level shots do is that, it creates intimacy and equality, and it shows that, you were also participating in the thing. So let's say you were talking about children with very small kind of like heights, then you obviously kneel down and take those photographs. You see you want to take pictures of children who are on drawing something, sitting on a mat. You don't take that picture from above. You go down, you kneel down, and you take it. That way you represent a better kind of like angle, kind of you show the person who's in the camera frame as somebody who's uh, deserving of their own dignity. They are control. They are in control. You're showing that they are in control, basically, that they are in command, and they are the center of the photo. But in other sense, like yeah, it depends on what kind of values you want to assign to the subject also. So not necessarily you want to do this for, let's say, you might do this for children, but you don't want to do this for other cases where you don't want to show that you're equal. Perhaps you want there will be decisions when the photographer prefers a higher angle to take the shot, or there might be cases where a low angle is better. I'm not saying that these are bad and they should not be done, but the way you use it can convey meanings. That's also what I'm saying here. And obviously, the decision is left up to you. You can use whatever you want, but this is just a demonstration of how camera angles and how we frame things can also speak volumes of dignity and equality and power, and how power is kind of like shown in these images. So then we'll go to Canva after this. I'm gonna introduce you to Canva and what Canva is, how you can make a post and all. But I will take a pause here for some time and see how things are going with everyone. You can use Facebook also.